Welcome to Back on the Broomstick,
a modern witch's spoken word grimoire,
where two witchy friends from way back are reconnecting to their pagan roots after a long period of mundanity.
We're rewalking the path of the wise and trying out all the latest spells, rituals, and magical theory in today's witchcraft and pagan practices.
So grab your wand and your incense,
your cauldron and your crystals,
and join us
as we get
back on the broomstick.
Hi, and welcome to Back on the Broomstick. I'm Layla, and in this episode, we're talking about dream magic. When we sleep, we slip out of the ordinary world and wander into the liminal landscape of the subconscious and our dreaming mind. Dreams can be beautiful, terrifying, prophetic, and sometimes completely unhinged. Science still doesn't fully know why we dream, but witches know there's more happening in that liminal space than mental filing and housekeeping. Dreaming is one of the most natural forms of trance work we have. Every night, we cross a threshold and our deeper self starts speaking to us. In this episode, we'll talk about how, by working with dream magic, you can learn to speak back to your magical self, control the conversation, and enact your will.
And I'm Chelle, and you know what Layla forgot in that whole long-winded thing, which was really fabulous, by the way, I'm not knocking it, but you forgot my favorite piece.
What's that?
Dream magic is journaling magic.
How in the world did I forget that part?
So I'm here. I'm excited. I've actually have a journal ready, but we won't talk about that. But yeah, dream magic. This is the time of year for dreams. You know, we've talked about Midsummer Night Dreams. It's kind of a theme this time of year. Everything with the fae folk and the liminal space. Summer is a time to daydream, which we'll touch on that. But it's a very dreamy time of year.
People have been pondering their dreams and what they mean for millennia. Countless cultures around the world, everybody wants to know what happens when we close our eyes and these images, these thoughts and feelings start flitting through our brains.
Now, Layla, I want you to just think for a minute. Imagine it's like 500 years ago, you're in kind of medieval times, okay, and you have this raging dream in the morning and you wake up and you're like, what the hell? Was that real? Was that not real?
Is it that dream where you're dressed in kind of like sun god robes, standing on the top of a temple, and thousands of people are throwing little pickles at you?
I didn't see the pickles, but absolutely. But imagine even 100 years ago, you wake up and you just had this whole quote unquote movie play out while you slept, and you wake up and you're so confused. And what is this? Why did this happen? Does this mean something? Is it nothing? That had to be pretty deep back in the day.
So it was probably questions like those that enticed people into working with their dreams and finding that the dreaming mind is a liminal space where a magical practitioner can work magic to affect their waking life, connect with their ancestors and the spirits, manifest their will, all of that from within the realm of dreams. So we're saying that dream magic is the practice of working intentionally with your dreams as a magical space. In this magical space, in this liminal landscape, the veil between this world and the gods, your ancestors, the spirits, and your own deeper wisdom is thinner. Your magical self is much closer to the surface and easier to work with.
Right.
So the idea here is that you are both the witch, you're the practitioner, and you are also the temple. You are the sacred space when you're doing dream magic because you're inside yourself. You, your consciousness, your witchy self is practicing inside the temple of your body on the altar of your bed to do this magic, to work your will. And you should treat it as such. You're the magic.
Right.
We do know that when we sleep, basically dreams are our subconscious rifling through everything. Our dreams are nosy little jerks, basically, going through our feelings, our emotions, our thoughts, our hopes and ideas for the day, our stresses, and replaying them at us, trying to make sense of them maybe. But you ever have a dream that feels a little different than that?
I feel like I have dreams that kind of fit into two categories. Clearing out the BS in your brain and kind of just rinsing it clean, and things that mean something, things that are a message or, like you said, something your subconscious is trying to get out there. And I have, obviously, I've had both different types, but I do feel that there are dreams that are just, not every dream is a message, in my opinion. Not every dream is a sign. Sometimes it's just your brain getting decluttered.
Most of the time, it's just your brain getting decluttered.
Right. I mean, that just reminded me, we've talked in the past about a reoccurring dream I had about my childhood home, which we both deduced was definitely something, a sign, a message, whatever. But I also have a dream that I remember where I was actually made into a princess, but I had a unicorn head. Now, like, I didn't have a unicorn head, and we all know I didn't have a unicorn head, but I also was into like My Little Pony back in that day. I also had a dream several times when I was young that I was being chased by Jason Voorhees. Now, that was a combination of my family were campers and my brother enjoyed giving me trauma. That was not a sign.
Right.
No one was going to chase me through the woods and kill me when I went to camp. But because I had watched that movie and I was scared, that idea was planted. But then the one about my childhood home that we've talked about that was a reoccurring dream, that definitely had some depth and meaning. So sometimes it's just kind of knowing yourself and knowing what your triggers are to
Absolutely.
better decipher, is this a message or is this brain clutter?
Yeah, and I guess what we're really talking about is learning your dreams. Part of dream magic, like working with the magical space of dreams to do spell work, to dream walk, to do trance work, is learning what your dreams feel like. What is a nightmare? What is a regular dream? What is a stress dream? And what is a prophetic dream? Or what is a message dream? Because they do feel different. So you have to kind of practice and look at what those are like, write them down. That's why Shell said at the beginning, weirdly, it wasn't me, but that's why Shell said at the beginning that dream magic is journaling magic because it really is. It requires a lot of writing down. What did you feel? What did you see? What did you hear? What did it make you feel? What did you feel like the next day? So that you can kind of get an idea. You have to have a baseline before you can really jump into the magic.
Now, we've talked about you mentioned nightmares, we've talked about dreams and such, but one point I also wanted to touch on is daydreaming. And it is a very similar thing. You kind of are in that alpha liminal space, that staring off into nothingness. I find myself doing that a lot on the front porch. I just kind of daydream off. And I do feel that under certain situations and certain mindsets, you can get the same effect as an actual dream and sleep. So I do think there is a daydreaming aspect to dream magic. You may have to tweak and do a few things a little bit different, but there's that same premise there.
I love that you mentioned daydreaming because that is a beautiful way to ease into like an alpha state, into a light dreaming state. And that's the place where you're going to want to be if you're going to do any type of scrying magic, or it's a great place to be if you want to do any type of divination magic, even spell work. And so by equating it to like a daydream and that kind of hazy feeling, we're familiar with that. We all kind of know what
Right.
it feels like to get lost in a daydream. So that makes it easy for, if you don't think you've ever been in an alpha state, just recall the last time you were completely lost in a daydream, and that'll help you bring that feeling back. But an alpha state is a brain wave state. This is an actual science thing. This isn't woo woo or witchy or anything. This is a real sciencey thing. So your brain exists in different states. When you are awake and aware, which hopefully this is where we are right now, you are in what's called beta. So beta is like conscious, waking, you're thinking, problem
Going about
solving,
your day.
focused. Exactly. You're just doing your day. Now, if you kind of slip into a daydream, that's an alpha state. That's kind of where your brain slows down a little bit. It goes from 20 to 30 hertz of beta state to 8 to 12 hertz of an alpha state. This is more relaxed alertness. You're calm, passive, you're chill. Basically, you're chill. You're just vibing, maybe staring off into space. This is a space where you can learn things. It's easier to absorb knowledge. You have a more direct connection to your subconscious this way. And as we've talked about before, having that subconscious be connected and aware is when you can get your magical brain in gear and you can start to get those things, your suggestions, your manifestations and intentions into your subconscious so your magical brain can start working on them. So when you're dreaming, you go into the next stage. You go into theta waves, 4 to 8 hertz, and that's a little bit more deeper. That's when you can get into your visualization, your intuition. The next one below that is called delta. And that's like that super deep, dreamless sleep. So dream work is going to happen in that theta state, that much deeper, more relaxed alpha state, where you're lightly asleep, and the dreams are happening. Your brain is actively working on things, and you can really plant suggestions there.
We had talked about different deity. We were trying to come up with deity that related to dreaming. And, we were stuck. There's the obvious Morpheus. This conversation thus far has led me down a different path. We were talking about this prior to recording, and we were like, geez, the only one we can really find is Morpheus. But all this talk about liminal space and these pathways and such, I feel
I know who you're going to say.
not just her, but any deity that is related to liminal spaces, I think could be utilized for dream work. Is Morpheus maybe the god of dreams? Yes, but you can also pull on those deities that work with liminal spaces and kind of, if Morpheus ain't your thing, or you don't know enough about it or don't want to learn about Morpheus, pick Hecate.
Yeah. So Morpheus and Hypnos are Greek gods. They're literal gods of sleep. And I can't think of any others. If any of you out there know any specific god or goddesses of sleep, let us know. But there are deities that have to do with dreams and dreaming as part of the mix of what they do, including Bridget, who one of her qualities is prophetic dreams. And Freya also has to do with prophetic dreams. So there's two other goddesses who are not specifically sleep goddesses, but some of their qualities have to do with that. So you can
Relate,
work with
yeah.
them. Yeah. So you can work with them if you want to bring in a little bit of deity energy to your dream work.
Another thing I wanted to touch on, and I think this is a really super important part of dream magic, is sleep hygiene. Because there's a lot of aspects to sleep hygiene that are going to be key ingredients to your dream magic. Everything from you cannot have prophetic dreams or do effective dream magic if you're going on 3-4 hours of sleep. So, you have to have good sleep, consistent sleep. This isn't something you do when you're worn down and you really need that sleep to recharge and not be doing magic.
And I would add to that good sleep hygiene for magic also includes setting a routine. A lot of magic involves repetition. To set your subconscious up for this magical working that you're doing is to get all of your being, all of yourself aligned towards your goal. So by creating a routine before bed, you are helping to set that pattern up. And this kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, that a lot of dream magic is preparation, is learning what your dreams are like, learning how to go to sleep in a good way with good hygiene, learning how to treat sleep as a sacred state, and learning to know what your dreams mean after you go to sleep. All of these are like preparing you to do the great work of dream magic.
Yeah, all these components are required for the end result. One thing that if you're really trying to get into that groove, take a ritual bath. If you're a bath person, take a ritual bath before bed. Light some candles, put some oils or some flower petals in your bath, and do a whole ritual bath before you go to bed. Make your bed an altar. Spray your lavender sheet sprays, or anybody on the planet except for me. Put some mullein under your pillow, or dream sachets, or have a dream enhancing smokable before bed. Have your comfy sheets on. Do all of the things. Make your bed an altar just as much as the patterns are important, and the sleep consistency is important.
And even before you go so big as to do like a ritual bath and the sachets and everything, set those up as regular patterns. Shower before bed. Doesn't have to be a full ritual bath, but set that up as part of your sleep hygiene. Set it up as part of your bedtime ritual. Keep them small and keep them consistent. Have your cup of tea, have your smokable before bed, do your tarot card pull and your journaling, light your candle, have your dream doorway glass of water on the nightstand. Set things up every night the same way so that your brain and your body recognize these as triggers and can get you into a wonderful state of sleep. So that when you're ready to do these rituals, to actually have magical dreams, to work in this liminal space, then you go all out, do the big guns, do the fancy bath, do the fancy tea and the fancy smokable, the fancy stuff on your bed. so that your brain knows, oh, same pattern, but now it's really freaking special. So something's up, and that can help get you into a heightened magical state before you go to sleep. Grab onto your broomstick, witches, back after these messages. Hey, witches! Sorry for the interruption, but we have got to bring you the best collaboration ever. Back on the Broomstick and the Witch's Moon.
We love these people. These are products that we've actually purchased.
The Witch's Moon is a witchy subscription box service and so much more.
They have a very comprehensive online market. So if boxes aren't your thing, if subscriptions aren't your thing, totally get it. But I could dump a paycheck in like one shopping order at this joint.
The jewelry, the crystals, the candles, the herbs, the books, the exclusive, beautiful items.
They have tarot decks that I don't have, I just want to point out.
There's a lot of love and work and energy that goes into this, and you can absolutely tell.
They curate these boxes for folks to be able to feel that magic every day. And I mean, isn't that really what we're trying to do here, is feel the magic every day and make it an everyday thing?
So check out thewitchesmoon.com. Whether you're looking for books and tarot, gorgeous jewelry, or monthly witchy supplies, they've got you covered.
Also, we have a discount code. You can use the code BOTB10.
That'll get you 10% off items in the Moon Market. It does not apply to subscription boxes, but you can use that on pretty much anything else in the Moon Market. Back to your regularly scheduled programming.
Oh, wait, we got to go back to the episode. You all got me in the mood to shop now.
No shopping till after the work is done, Chelle.
Yeah, because you really have to, you have to remember this isn't something that you're just going to hop into night one, dream one. This is something that repetition is going to be the key to success. And by, what do they say? 21 days, it's a habit. 21 times, it's a habit. Just get yourself into the habit of being mindful of magic at bedtime.
Then once you do that, you've created this habit, you've created this magical full-on ritual before you go to sleep. You're treating your sleep as sacred, not just because it gives you rest, but because you know you go to a magical realm as soon as you close your eyes and you get into that sleep state. So you've done all that. The next step is to start recording your dreams. Take that journal that's part of your sleep ritual right there next to your bed. And as soon as you wake up, either in the middle of the night or in the morning when you've had a dream, start jotting down the major points of it.
No matter how much or how little you remember, every little tidbit is a key to something.
For me, I have to do it fast. I have to either say it into like a notes app on my phone, or I have to write it really fast, because if I don't, I'll forget. Dreams are so fleeting.
They are. And I think the key to this is keeping that notebook, keeping that journal of what you're dreaming, and keep looking back. Always be looking back at the previous, because, my big thing with dream magic is I do not like books that are correspondences for dream magic, because you could see a snake and love it to pieces, and I see a snake and there's terror. We've talked about this before, different meanings for different people. But I think as much as I know that with, tarot or other forms of divination or things like that, herbs, incense, oils, people can kind of alter that meaning personally, but there's still kind of an overall arching theme to it. I think that overall arching theme does not apply to dream symbolism, because I think that dream symbolism is so like fingerprint individual, and you have to start that dream journal to be able to start creating your correspondences. So, maybe you saw a red balloon and a turkey in an airplane flying over Hawaii. So you write that down. What do each of those things, what do they mean to you? How do they make you feel? Because how you feel about what you see is going to be as important as journaling down. Journal down every single thing you remember, but then look back at it and how did that make me feel? What did I think? Was there any emotion tied to it? Was I happy? Was I sad? Whatever. Put that together based on those feelings or those thoughts.
I recommend writing everything down really, really fast, and then later going back and looking at it. Because in the beginning, just focus on getting as much down as you can remember. And then after you've had a little bit of time, go back and take a look at it. And then I always tell people the first thing that you should look for is what's the first weird thing that stands out to you? Because there's usually something weird. What's the first weird thing that stuck out to you? What's different?
Turkey in an airplane.
That's right, turkey in an airplane. Then you can start asking yourself, well, what do I feel about a turkey in an airplane? Why did that happen? What does that represent? What does it symbolize to me? And I do feel that dream books and dream interpretation and symbol interpretation books can help and give you a direction to go in if you're really stuck on what the heck that turkey in an airplane means.
Right, right.
Carl Jung is a psychiatrist that is one of the founders of dream interpretation and symbol interpretation. And so a lot of our ideas on archetypes and symbol meanings come from him. And there is a lot to it. You know, there's Santa Claus, a universal kind of idea and archetype that we all understand. So some of it works for everybody, but maybe your Santa Claus is Saint Nick, and maybe my Santa Claus looks more like a Odin and forest garb, you know? So
Right, right.
there can still be differences. And like you said with the snake thing, some people see snake and it means wisdom, transformation and change, shedding the old, beginning the new. Maybe it means Ouroboros to them, but other people, it means complete abject fear. So
Right.
some things, yes, will have a universal meaning, and some things, most things, will not. So having that journal is going to be vital. So after you identify the weird thing, then identify the repeated things. Are colors repeated? Are numbers repeated? What happened over and over again?
Our locations repeated.
What stood out to you the most? What was the most shocking? Ask yourself these questions and write down your answers, and that will start to unlock it. And you'll say, oh, the turkey in the airplane. Last Thanksgiving, I got in an argument with Uncle Bob who flew here and hated the turkey. And so I equated the two of those. I don't know, whatever. You'll start to find connections. Even if you're looking at something, you're like, well, turkey doesn't mean that to me. That can still help give you a connection by telling you what it doesn't mean to you. But go through the checklist and you can start to really see a pattern.
And I think as part of your dream journal, you can also, because I think one thing that can be helpful, you start a dream journal in the front of the book. Flip to the back of the book and start creating your own correspondence list so that you have that. So you
Or be
have,
super bad and write your correspondences right next to the one in the dream dictionary.
yeah, right.
Another good one is like, what emotions stayed with you after you woke up? Have you ever had a dream where your boyfriend cheated on you or something and you wake up pissed off at him?
Yeah.
Or, somebody did you dirty somehow and you wake up all mad. Those feelings are very real and they can stick with you. So noting how you feel when you wake up from that dream can also help you interpret what it means.
And it can also, give you some insight on how you're taking those symbols, because there are symbols that, in one situation they can mean one thing to you, or in another situation they mean something completely different. So just like tarot, you kind of have to take a look at what else is around, what are all the things going on around it. So you do pick it apart, but then you kind of also try to read it like a story as well, just like tarot.
Maybe you are terrified of snakes, right? But you have a dream where you have a snake that's a friend and they're giving
Right,
you advice and you have zero fear or terror about them, whereas you normally would in your waking life.
right, right.
That's obviously something weird and different, and it can mean something different. Maybe this means something that frightens you has wisdom for you. You can find all sorts of meaning and things like that. So pay attention to what's different, what's unusual, what's weird, and that can oddly lead you down a very normal explanation path. The biggest reason we want you to know about these symbols and to create your own journal of symbols is because you'll need those when your magical self is in this dream working your will.
Right.
If you're going to work your will through your dreams, you have to work in a language of symbols that your subconscious understands. So you first need to know what that language is.
Right. So, if in your mind, in your being, you equate things like love to flowers and hugs and smiling and happiness, and then you have a dream that reflects all of those things, you can kind of say, you know what? Hey, this is the vibe of this dream. This is a positive dream that's kind of leading me down the path that makes me think that dream may relate to love. And because I want to do magic about love, so I'm going to do, maybe take a rose petal bath beforehand, or maybe I'll have like a sachet under my pillow that has rose petals in it. Or, maybe I'd put some rose quartz under my pillow or at the foot of my bed.
Exactly. So if you've had dreams in the past, particularly that had roses in them that had to do with love, then you know your subconscious has latched on to that.
Right. If in your mind, when you're dreaming, you have equated love, rose petals and rose quartz, and I'm going to be thinking about affection, then these are the same things that you're going to want to pull from. If I want to do a love spell, I want to pull on these themes and utilize these themes because I know my dreaming mind, that's what they equal.
People can appear differently in dreams sometimes too. So you want to keep those things written down. Maybe roses don't mean love in your dreams. Maybe you see tulips all the time when you feel true love in your dreams. So you'll need to know that, because if you go into your dream space and you're going to ask for love and you put out a rose and your subconscious sees love as tulips, it's not going to get the right message.
You are speaking the wrong language in the wrong country.
Exactly. Right.
And
Exactly.
that's where you really have to kind of do the initial footwork of the dream journaling, because you have to learn the language of your sleeping mind.
So you've got your ritual space now all set up. You're treating sleep as sacred. You've got good sleep hygiene. You're well rested. You've got your language, your dream language all set up. The next step is to now do some dream magic. And there's two very common ways to do this. One of them is by setting an intention for sleep before bed, that your sleeping self will perform a certain act. And I recommend that you write all of it out, because honestly, writing things, your hand writing it down, very good connection to your subconscious brain. So you write down, I will dream of my true love. I will dream of our future together. I will dream of where I will meet my true love. And write it down as many times as you can, or however you can, and set up your space like a love spell. Then when you go to sleep, you have set the intentions, you have set the ideas that you will have this dream. And it might take practice, but it can happen that way. The second way that we're going to talk about is lucid dreaming, where you not only set the intention before you go to sleep, but you are aware enough in your dream to actually perform the spell or to do the actions to work your will.
That is also, I'm going to go right back to, you're not going to accomplish all this on your first night. For the level that we're talking, this takes a minute. You want to practice your alpha states. You want to practice that quote unquote daydreaming, because it does, I think, kind of lead you down the path a little bit easier. So these are things that, you need to put that kind of hard work and grit into. It's not just listen to us talk about it and boom, you're going to do it tonight. I wish it worked that way. But I think this is one of those things that definitely the time you put in to prep yourself and your mind and your spirit for it, that what you get back is tenfold.
And practice does make perfect. And if you practice intentional dreaming, if you practice setting your intention to do magic in your dream space, that will actually help you be a better lucid dreamer. And lucid dreaming happens when you realize that you're asleep and dreaming and don't wake up. And you can actually perform actions. You can walk around in the dream to some extent, but it can be very difficult to hold on to that. People who meditate, practicing alpha states, getting into that deeper, almost theta state, practicing getting into that, it helps. They've found that people who meditate are much more able and likely to be able to go into a lucid dreaming state.
Definitely a good precursor.
Absolutely. So, do you have any little spells or things that people can do to kind of set that intention to work magic in their sleep?
I'm a big fan of the prep. I like the lavender spray for the bed. I find that super delightful. I can't do the mugwort thing, and I know a lot of folks like to kind of go that route. So for me, it's kind of more of I do my own alpha meditation. Generally, for me, that's usually the crystal countdown, kind of get myself there. And What I like to do is take the time to kind of get something prepared beforehand. I like a sachet because, again, you can spray the bed, but sometimes that only lasts like 10 minutes. So like a sachet. I love my herbal mixtures. I love making the incense thing and the teas. So I like to do a sachet and put some of those things in that, not the things that are gonna make me want to claw my eyes out in my sleep.
You mean more like lavender and chamomile, things to promote relaxation?
Yeah, and when I was a little bit younger, I used to get, what was that tea? The sleepy time
Sleepy
tea
time,
with a little
yeah.
bear on it. And when I was in my early 20s, I was a young witch. I didn't know. I thought I needed the sleepy time tea for dream magic. But kind of set yourself up with a really good sleeping tea and then have the sachet because a tea is all nice and well before bed, but maybe I'm an overachiever, but I feel like I need something to last me through the night, and a sachet will do that. Whereas a tea, if I wake up at 3 a.m. to pee, that done deal here, people. So I like the sachet because it doesn't promote me waking up in the middle of the night to kind of break that cycle because I got the bladder of a 90-year-old woman. And if I wake up mid dream, then that's kind of killed it for me because I'm also not jotting shit down at 3 a.m. either before I go back to sleep. And sometimes that's caught me up and made me angry. You wake up, you have to pee, and you're like, I am going to pick that dream up right where I left off when I go back to sleep because I need to. You never do. You
Yeah.
never pick the dream up where you left off. Never. So, the sachet is probably my biggest thing. I do the lavender sheet spray. Those are the things that I kind of put myself into alpha as I'm laying into bed to go to sleep. Those are the things that I kind of turn to.
The two things that I like to turn to, other than the ritual, setting up the sleep habit before bed, is I like to have kind of like a touchstone on my nightstand. And I usually use one of two things, or sometimes I'll use both. Either tea or water by my bed. I feel that water itself is magical. It's powerful. It's a force of life. And so I like to think about that, the idea that this water has been in everything. It holds memories. So I'll hold that as one of the last things I do before I go to sleep. And into the water, I will speak my intention to remember my dreams, to do a spell to bring money and success and prosperity into my life while I'm sleeping. And I'll think of some of the symbols that are my personal symbols for success and abundance while I do this. And I might whisper them or say it into the glass of water. And then I'll take a sip of it. Not a lot, because, I feel you on the waking up in the middle of the night. Nobody wants to drink a ton of water right before you go to bed.
And nobody's picking the dream up where they left off either.
That's right. So I have a sip of that, go to bed, and then in the morning, the very first thing I do is sip that water because that helps me remember all those intentions I spoke before I went to sleep. I'm speaking them to the water, but I was also speaking them to my subconscious. And by taking that sip again, that's a physical act that reminds your subconscious of what you said. And so that can help you with dream recall. And I also will do something similar, like if I have my journal next to my bed, I'll do that with my pen. I'll hold the pen almost like it's a wand. Think of it as a magical wand and charge that pen and hold the pen with the idea of when I wake up in the morning and touch this pen, I will remember my dreams. I will remember the details. And that sets an intention into your subconscious that you're going to sleep on all night. And when you wake up in the morning and touch that pen, it can trigger that and bring it back. But practice does make perfect. Practice, practice, practice.
It really does. And I think that that's why dream work gets a bad rap because it's not quick. It's like, again, taking it back to tarot. You got to put in the time for it to be as effective as you want it to be.
Even when I am able to lucid dream, which isn't often because it's not something I practice a lot and I'm not great at it. But when I am able to lucid dream, I usually get as far as being like, oh, wow, cool, I'm dreaming. You kind of look around and you're like, whoa, this is cool. I'm dreaming. Yeah. And then I'm awake. So you have to be able to get past that part, and it can be
Right?
hard and it takes a lot of practice.
Yeah.
So don't worry if it's not something that you can do right away, but set the ritual, set the stage, and set your intentions. You don't have to lucid dream in order to work your will and to work magic in your dream state. Setting your intention beforehand, telling yourself that you'll go into this dream state and set your magical mind to a purpose can be very, very powerful. So, the last thing before we go out is nightmares. What do you do if you have repeated nightmares over and over and over again? Whether you feel like they're magical messages or if you feel like it's just your brain being shitty to you, what are some things that you can do to like control or understand or completely eliminate nightmares?
I kind of go back to that sleep hygiene thing. Make your bed an altar, sage the shit out of that. That's where you're sleeping, that's where you're doing your dream magic. Even if you're not intentionally doing magic or intentionally trying to do spell work, or even if you're not even intentionally trying to go into a liminal space, the mind is a crazy thing, and you could fall asleep on a random Tuesday, and the next thing you know, there's Freddie. So, sage your space. If you have a nightmare, if I have a nightmare once, I start saging my room because I don't want to stick around to see if it happens again, especially if it was a really nasty nightmare. I just immediately sage my room, cleanse my space.
This might be a surprise to you, Shell, but the first thing I do when I have a nightmare, especially if I feel like, there's a magical touch to it or something.
Write it down, obviously.
How did you know? Yeah, absolutely. I write that down. I write every little detail, actually, of that down. Every stinking detail. Because I find that the more I'm able to dissect it, discuss it with myself, go over it, it tends to lose power. And that's also something that might not happen right away, might take a few times, but the more I'm able to understand it, the better I'm able to see all sides of it, the easier it is to overcome. And if I do find through journaling it and working through it that it is some type of magical message, that's going to be the fastest way for me to figure out what my subconscious, what my magical self or higher self is trying to tell me, is by writing down every detail and trying to figure it out.
But aside from journaling, any other things you do to kind of maybe banish nightmares if you start having them, or?
Set a code word. Part of writing it all down isn't just to journal it, it's to take ownership of it. It's to learn it inside and out so you can control it. When you know the insides and outs and you have all the details of this nightmare, you have power over it. You have control over it. You have knowledge that can help you transform it. And one of the ways that you can control it is by giving yourself a keyword, a trigger. So if you know you're having nightmares, or if you suspect that you might have one this night, you can tell yourself that when I'm having a nightmare,
Rhinoceros.
yeah, I'll say the word rhinoceros and I will see a door. And when I open the door, I'll be able to get out of the dream. That's something that you should write repeatedly because, again, writing it down puts it in your subconscious faster. Say it over and over again. Say it every time before you go to bed as part of your sleep ritual. If I ever need to leave a dream quickly, I will say rhinoceros and I will see a door and I'll be able to leave. And the more you set that intention, the more that 4-year-old in your subconscious will believe you. Your subconscious speaks in symbols and riddles and it likes magical thinking. It doesn't necessarily like, well, this is a dream and you don't need to be scared because this is just pretend. Your toddler brain's not going to listen to that, but it will
Absolutely.
listen. But if you say, the word rhinoceros is a magical word that will make a magical door appear when I'm having a nightmare, that surprisingly can stick in your brain. And that will help you pull up out of these nightmares sometimes. Again, it can take a lot of practice. The other thing that you can do with nightmares is something called, it's like reframing, basically. There's a psychological tool where you recall something bad that happened, a bad memory, a bad dream, a nightmare. So you recall all of it, and then you rewrite it. Basically, say at the end of the nightmare, the green-eyed purple people eater chomps you down, and you keep having this dream over and over again. So you write it down, every little detail, and then you write it the way that you want it to go. You write down a totally different ending where you defeat the monster, where you and the monster become friends, where the monster turns into an ant and scuttles away. However you want the ending to be, rewrite the ending of that dream. And then write that over and over again every time you have that dream. And that can really help you to change that story. Because just like we were talking about earlier, we said that you can have a dream that your significant other does something crappy to you and you're pissed off in real life.
You can also change that negative to a positive.
Changing your emotions through this dream work can change your emotions in your real waking life to give you more happiness, more success, more whatever you're looking for to have in your life. Sometimes it might require you to reframe it though.
Dreams are like, a lot of other things. 50% of the battle is being able to turn that negative into a positive and take the shitty parts, dust them off, and find the good in there and figure out how to work with it.
Find the lesson, even if it's a hard one. Find the lesson in there, see how you can work with it. And then once you've done those parts, then you can get to the fun part where you can start to set your intentions, where you can start to even work magic while you're sleeping. You don't have to just be a witch in your waking hours. You can be a witch in your dream time too. But you might as well set that subconscious up to work your magical will, And so using the liminal space of your dreams is a very, I wouldn't say easy. It's not an easy way because it takes a lot of practice. But using the liminal space of your dreams is a very powerful way to work your will, to work magic.
Geez, all this dream talk is making me want to go to sleep.
Is it nap time again, Chelle?
I think it's nap time. Yeah.
Something like that. I don't know.
Daydreams.
There you go. Definitely daydreams. All right. Well, thank you all so much for listening to this episode of Back on the Broomstick. Please like, subscribe, give us some reviews, give us some stars. It really helps the show out and it helps people to find us.
So, guys, go have some great dreams. And again, if you have some nightmares, turn that lemon into lemonade. Be wise, be wicked.
And keep it witchy.